Welcome to the DGD podcast. As always, Robert Reynolds, Cubby Pierce. Cubby, welcome back, man.
What's up, brother? How are you?
Doing all right. Excuse me. Got a lot to talk about. We're gonna be talking Auburn a little bit, but let's talk some Georgia first. I know you saw Brett Thorson's first day of camp picture. I thought that was absolutely hilarious.
I agree. I think Brett's got a good sense of humor on him. I think it comes with a little bit of maturity, a little ability to take a joke and realize that, just the culture shock and the realization of, like, this is a team sport and, somehow I can still be one of the best punters in the country, but I may only get the opportunity to show that, 3 times a game maximum, some games. And there's some games last year he didn't punt at all, maybe 4 games, we didn't punt a single time.
Yeah, no, it's interesting. I think the everybody but Stetson thing had me chuckling pretty good. Just thought that was funny. But I want to obviously preface that was a preface to what we're talking about in a minute here, and that's fall camp, right? Kirby talked earlier, kind of gave us some clarification on some injuries, things like that. Right, and then if I'm not mistaken, fall camp starts tomorrow. First fall camp starts tomorrow. So, kind of give us a rundown on what that's going to be, what that's going to be like.
Yeah, it sucks. They reported today, as far as I know, but you're looking at 16-hour days for roughly 14 days uninterrupted, 13 days uninterrupted. They'll have wake up call, which he said in his meeting, like, they're going to go a little bit different. They're going to practice in the morning because some guys have finals tomorrow. So tomorrow will look different, but when they go to normal, it'll be, wake up call like 6:30, 6 o'clock, 6:30. Breakfast is from like 6 o'clock to maybe like 7:15. And then you have probably team meeting over in Butts at 7:30. You probably have a lift group going at 8 and meetings for the other side going at 8, and then you both go an hour and then you flip. So then from 9 to 10 the other side lifts and then the other group meets. Then you probably roll into probably like an on the field walkthrough down in the indoor. So from like, what would that be, 10, 11 o'clock. So probably starting at, like you're saying, roughly 10:30, you're going to walk through until about 11:45, and then they're going to release you, and you're going to be released from like 12 Lunch will probably be from like 12 to 2, roughly. And you'll have to be like dressed, ready, and taped in the team meeting room by 2:30. And then you would do team meeting again, special teams meeting, you'll do position meeting, and then you probably go out about 4:30, 4:15. You'll do like pre-practice walk, stretch and stride, and then practice will start about 4:30, 4:45, and then you'll go until, roughly 6:45, give or take, maybe 7, and then come in, take a shower. Dinner will start at 7:30, go until probably 8:30, and then you'll have a team meeting back over at the other facility for probably from like 9, probably like 9 to 10, 10:15 roughly, and then you'll have snack from like 10:15 to 11, and then it'll be lights out at 11, and then you get up and do it all again the next day. That's like a
You just
general
repeat the
look at
process.
what I'd say
Man,
a day-to-day looks
that's
like.
like it sounds like a long ass day, dude. That sounds like a really long day. But
Yeah, you
I
definitely
guess with that
plan.
being said, that what was that?
You definitely plan. You definitely plan like how quickly can I eat lunch? How long do I have to like take a nap? How long, can I stay at the facility? Like what can I not really cut the corner, but like if I can eat lunch in 20 minutes, I have an hour and 40 minutes that I can go take an hour nap in the middle of the day, instead of kind of lingering around, like taking a long time to take a shower, then you got to walk, you know, you can kind of get a little bit more free time on the back end, if you like plan certain meals certain ways.
Yeah, I feel like, I mean, obviously, we don't have to go through it, but that also means when that fall camp starts, man, it's just one more step closer to the actual meaningful football. So there's always that sense of anxiety, right? Just you've been waiting for what 9 months, what it feels like, I think now, and it's about to come, and next thing you know, it'll be gone again. It's just that's just the way college football works. But
Better enjoy this one, is all I got to say.
yeah, I mean, there's so much to it. I mean, you got the last year of 14 playoffs. You're primed for a three-peat, man.
Just
And
so
then
much though. Last year of the SEC being the way it is, last year of pretty much almost every conference being the way it is, looking like the Pac may or may not make it, looking like the ACC may or may not make it. I mean, it just is a lot of unknowns right now. Um,
yeah, there. I mean, the whole. What was, if I'm not mistaken, the Pac-12 was talking about doing Apple Plus or something like that. Like, come on, man. Don't want to pay $99 a year to watch a team out west. That's rough.
yeah,
And if there was like, I don't know, if there was a bunch of meaningful games, if it was like, I would see that and be fine. But for the most part, like, it's not a good look. It's just not, because that's not accessible enough to generate the viewership that you need. You know what I mean? That's just my thoughts. But then, hell, the ACC decided, or Florida State, I should say, sitting there basically just voices displeasure out in public, and it's like, well, at that point you start to really wonder if things are, breaking down in the ACC as well, right? Because you feel that both conferences, it would be just weird to start to see the realignment into a two conference type thing, or three, right, with the Big 12. But I mean, I just don't know how to make it. I don't know what to make of it. I really don't. What do you thought?
um, yeah. I mean, I think people dislike the fact that really the Big East kind of you know dissipated in the mid 2000s, and then I think from there it's been definitely this like Power Five, um, but like we've talked about, the Pac hasn't been overly competitive since when did USC win the last one? 2005.
Something like that. It's been a long time. What it feels like, yeah.
So like you're talking about, the Pac hadn't won one, and somebody correct me if I'm wrong, but I'm pretty sure the Pac hadn't won one since USC won that one in 2004. And then basically the very next year, Texas wins the one out of the Big 12, roughly. And then basically after that, 2006 is Florida's. Then you go Florida, LSU, Florida, and then you kind of go on the Bama run, and then you like trickle in a Florida State, you trickle in an Ohio State. But in reality, like you're saying, it's just hard to get money into these conferences when you're not winning. We're not winning the big games, I guess. USC has less of a national following now than it did 20 years ago. I would say, they still have a really big following, and there are plenty of schools that still have a big following. But obviously, if the Pac is seriously considering, doing an Apple Plus program with the schools that are left, it just tells you that USC and UCLA leaving really hurt their, what they think they can get in viewership, which just sucks, because then it sends everybody running to super conferences. And I'm not a fan of, 18, 20 team super conferences. It just doesn't make any sense to me, in the grand scheme of things.
Yeah, that would be. I mean, it's crazy to think about it, but at the same time, like, change is inevitable, and it could be coming sooner than we want. You know what I mean?
It is here. I mean, I don't even think it's like sooner than we want. Like, I mean, with that meeting happening with the Pac, and they only have 9 schools right now, and then I thought the Big 12 did a good job. Like, obviously, they added some schools on the up and up, like UCF, some people like that, BYU, to kind of regain being the Big 12 again. I thought they did a good job. But the problem is out west for the Pac. Like, who are you going to add out there? I think that's the hard question. Is there's just not that many dominant schools in that region for Power 5 football that you're like, well, we're going to be able to hang our hat on, these 4 or 5 schools joining.
Not with the same brand by any means. Yeah, no, I'm with you 100%. Let's see. Outside of the camp and the conference realignment, was there anything else that we may have missed real fast? I mean, I don't. Is there anything in the news?
It's not football related, but I just read an article about it earlier. You want to hear it?
Do it.
Lizzo is being sued for fat shaming backup dancers that work for her, and that whole fiasco. That's very not football related, but I thought it was a very interesting read. And if you are listening to this, you haven't read that article, it definitely, the statements made by that backup dancer paints a pretty vivid picture of the person that she may or may not have been working for a while. And if that all kind of rolls into the courts, yeesh, it's a rough look.
Yeah, no, 100%. And obviously, Georgia's got 31 days left till we strap up, but that doesn't. You still got week 0. What are you looking forward to week 0?
Was there the one big game? Notre Dame. I think week 0 is the big game.
I think so.
Do they have the big game? Week 0 really does not do a ton for me. Besides maybe give you like a small dose of what is to come.
As we welcome on Jake Crain. Jake, how you doing?
Gentlemen, sorry I'm a little bit late. It's been kind of crazy. My hair's a little crazy right now, but excited to join you guys as usual.
Now, we were talking some week 0 and some conference situation.
Hey, let me week 0 though. Why do we call it that? Like that?
It's week 1. It's week 1.
Well, yeah, it's week 1. Like it's like people say patient 0. Like what y'all were operating on a ghost?
Man said ghost and disappeared.
This is interesting.
Jake, can you hear us?
right. Anyways,
I'm with Pat though. I was digging the hoodie. Sweet Houston Oilers hoodie.
Houston Oilers is hard to come by around these days. It really is.
Well, you saw the Titans are breaking out the Oilers uniform
They are.
for their throwbacks.
They are. They are. So, obviously, we're here to talk some Auburn football. We'll let Jake get situated. But in the meantime, let's talk about the biggest factor, and that's Hugh Freeze. What are your thoughts on Hugh Freeze at Auburn so far?
I mean, man is doing his best 2017 Kirby Smart impersonation with a little bit of NIL to sweeten the pot. I mean, he's him and the man at Florida State negatively recruiting top tier powerhouse programs, throwing big time promises of good NIL money at top recruits. And, I'm happy for him. Like, at some point, do I want Auburn to be a powerhouse? Maybe not, but to see them get a couple good recruits, first 5-star, I think, since like 2018 or 2019. I mean, that's a long time for SEC school to be going on a drought. And then even South Carolina with Dylan Stewart. Like, to me, I love keeping those guys in the SEC. I'm glad that Dylan Stewart's not a Ohio State Buckeye or, any of that kind of stuff. So.
Yeah, I think Hugh Freeze is going to become a problem quickly. It might be more for Alabama's sake than ours, if that makes sense.
Well, Auburn, here's the big thing. Auburn and Florida State, historically for Georgia, have always been a problem. Their schools are a little bit easier to get into. They're a lot closer and more convenient for a majority of the state of Georgia, especially South.
Let's see. I think, Jake, can you hear us?
Yeah, I can hear y'all. I just I can't see myself on the camera. I don't know if you can see me.
I think it's because you said you were going ghost, and then
we
went
got
ghost.
a black
Well,
screen.
it's kind of weird. I haven't done anything to the Russians either. I don't know what's going on.
Who knows at this point? I really don't. I can't tell you there. If we can hear you, let's just roll with it that way. And in the meantime, we can get situated. All right. So we were talking Hugh Freeze, man. Obviously coming in, making waves on the recruiting trail. So want to get your thoughts. What's it like looking like Auburn fans? How are they feeling with Hugh Freeze there?
Well, look, I think, since the Harsin hostage crisis is over now, there's kind of been a breath of fresh air. I mean, Hugh's hit the ground running in recruiting. And look, it's something where Auburn's got a long way to go. But you look at what he did in the transfer portal. You look at it seems like all of Auburn is aligned, DGD. And that's something that we haven't had in the past. And look, we're all a fan of somebody. I'm an Auburn fan, but, we cover all of it. And I'm harder on Auburn than anybody, and there's been a lot of fracturing in the fan base and the boosters and the coaches and things like that. But at least right now, it seems like everybody's aligned, and that Hugh's out here putting the work in. I mean, we obviously know what happened with DeMarcus Riddick, with Perry Thompson. Looks like they're about to get Dre Carter, T.J. Lindsey, possibly K.J. Bolden, even though I think that's 50-50 right now. And we had Josh Newberg on our show, and he said it's Georgia till it isn't. And with the way that Georgia's recruiting, I tend to lean that way, but it feels like Auburn's organized. Everybody's kind of moving in the same direction, and what he's done, off the field, on the field as well, is it's pretty impressive.
Yeah, and you're not wrong. I mean, obviously we saw his track record at Ole Miss, right, when he was in the SEC to begin with, right? We saw the things, right? I think everybody wants to paint that picture, right, and leave it there. But I think, his time at Liberty and everything hopefully changed the man, right?
Yeah. Well, I mean, you look, he's won everywhere he's been, and the only time he didn't win was because of self-inflicted wounds. And I don't think he's going to make that same mistake twice when you see your professional life, when you're at the mountaintop, kind of flash before your eyes. So yeah, I think Hugh that knows how to win. I think he understands where he screwed up, and he's kind of owned that, and we'll see. But he's done it before,
No, you're not wrong. I mean, you look at Perry Thompson. His comments were interesting to me. I heard it sounded like a debate between Bama and Auburn fans, basically talking about how Saban didn't develop. Maybe I misread that or whatever, but I don't think that makes any sense. However,
Yeah, yeah. Well, I
However,
mean, listen, they're not recruiting him because he's great at giving speeches.
he wins, man. That's what you do.
Yeah, go make a
What's
play.
I feel like it's a 180-degree change from Harson. Is that fair to assume there, Jake?
Yeah, I agree with you 100%. I mean, look, and I wanted it to work out with Brian Harsin. The thing that was the most disappointing about Brian Harsin isn't that he doesn't know ball or that he can't develop players or doesn't have a good plan. He didn't put in the work recruiting. How in the hell do you think you can come into a conference where the greatest of all time, Nick Saban's 190 years old, still putting in all the work in recruiting, the hardest recruiter, Kirby Smart, who is running the sport, who is one of the hardest recruiters, and you're going to come into Auburn and be a house cat. You know, I think my brother said it best. You got to be out in the jungle right now with a bow and arrow hunting for your dinner. Like, that's the only way to survive recruiting in this league. And that's what Hugh's doing. And I was shocked that Brian Harsin just wanted to lift weights and talk about accountability and not go out and recruit.
I mean, I don't know. As I felt like he burned a lot of bridges with relationships too. That I think Hugh Freeze came in, and I mean, we all know how this goes with Auburn, though. The boosters, help drive that program too.
Yeah, like everybody's.
Kobe, you got something?
Yeah, I guess the big thing with Brian Harsin too is like you can't even lean on the rapport that you have with coaches in the state, coaches in the area, coaches in the South. I mean, coming from Boise State, coming from nowhere, Idaho, you don't have that track record down here where guys go, oh yeah, let's go play for Brian Harsin. He can develop, XYZ. You go play for Kirby Smart, you're probably going to be a first round draft pick. On the defense, you go play for Nick Saban. You're going to play for a lot of big games, big meaningful games. You just don't have that same vibe when Auburn was walking into your high school and your head coach or athletic director goes, hey, the head coach from Auburn's here to see you. You're like,
Yeah.
I really wish that would have been somebody else here to see me.
Well, and every circumstance is different. You can only, it's like the transfer portal, right? You can only get what the market bears. And the way it went down with Kevin Steele and all that stuff, and it was messy, and, Alan Green went and picked Brian Harsin. And I would just think, though, if I was coming into a place where I didn't have these relationships, I would work 3 times as hard as everybody else in recruiting. I wouldn't sit back and think that the players would just come to me when I don't have that track record. Nick Saban could sit back and players would go to Bama. Kirby Smart could sit back if he wanted and players would go to Georgia. Now, not at the level they are when he's out there recruiting because the head coach is the ultimate closer. But it just, again, it goes back to just me being shocked that the man did not want – Auburn didn't have a junior day one year. That's insane. That is insane.
That's going to set you
Boise
back.
State.
That's setting you back.
That stuff blows my mind.
Yeah, that's going to set you back. Not having that junior day, man, I don't think that the ramifications of that were obvious, because that will set you back multiple years.
Yeah, well, it's like that song by The Fray. Everyone knows I'm in over my head, and that's exactly what it was.
Absolutely, man. I mean, so I do want to ask you. Obviously, we've talked about Hugh Freeze, but obviously, what are your expectations with the new coordinators? Right, you got Philip Montgomery and Ron Roberts, I think it is. What are your expectations for both of those guys? What do you think Auburn can look like this season?
Well, I think they've been around long enough to know you have to adjust to your personnel, right? Like you have what you want to do, and then you have what you're able to do. Those are 2 different things. I think offensively, even though Phil Montgomery is going to call the plays, and look, play calling is a team effort. A lot of people don't understand that because they've never been on the headset during the game. You got a lot of different voices in there that are telling you what they're seeing. Guys are looking at different spots. Hey, what's the offensive line like? What are they feeling? How's it going? But I think what you're going to get that RPO system that puts pressure on 2-3 different points at a time. And you're going to take what the defense gives you. That's one of the beauties of that style of offense. But with Phil Montgomery, he comes from that Art Briles. I'm going to mess with the splits. I'm going to change the spacing. You're going to get different combinations. Tennessee does a little bit of it. That's why it looks like they're wide all the time. They're trying to change the way you align because you're not used to seeing it. It's almost like the triple option of the outside. You're just not used to seeing it. It's hard to prepare for. But when it comes down to it, Auburn's offense is gonna go on how that offensive line goes. And when you look at the quarterback position, you've got two different guys, Peyton Thorne and Robbie Ashford. Those are your two guys. Well, both of them are kind of on the opposite end of the spectrum. When you're running that RPO system, you need a dual threat guy. Does Peyton Thorne run the ball well enough to have defenses have to respect his legs on the RPO action? Does Robbie Ashford throw it well enough, on the other hand, to be able to have the defense respect that too, to have that offense operate at maximum efficiency? Now, on the defensive side, Ron Roberts wants to pressure, right? That's who he is. But he also, just like every other defensive coordinator of all time, would love to be able to put four guys out there and be able to rush the passer, right? And then be able to manipulate off that. Does Auburn have that? I don't know. That's the biggest question on the team. Not can they stop the run. Can they rush the passer and get their ass off the field on third down? That's what it comes down to. So I think what you're going to see from Ron Roberts in the defense early, you're going to get a lot of base, and they're going to see what they're able to do. Am I able to get pressure with four? If I'm able to get pressure with four, then I can build pressures off of that, and I don't got to go try and throw the kitchen sink at people to try and create turnovers and get people in third and long. So I think a lot of it is going to come down to the personnel. It always does, and we'll know that after the first couple games. But they are experienced.
Yeah, I was about to say, I know. As soon as Hugh came in, it seemed like they hit the portal for some big time receivers, and what I mean by that is some tall guys, right? I think you look at his track record with Ole Miss, right, with DK and Brown,
AJ.
right? AJ, yeah. He can. I think you can utilize those receivers, and you saw some receivers come in. I think that was a big thing that was needed out, honestly. When you look at last year, there really wasn't. It felt like maybe last 2 or 3 years, Kobe. It's probably been. I know at one point D-Rob was Auburn's best receiver. That's kind of telling. So I think you look at Hugh Freeze coming in and kind of immediately changing those perceptions, right? But I do want to know, what's the latest on Jarquez Hunter, right? If I'm not mistaken, there was some off-season stuff.
Yeah.
Jake, do you know what's the latest with that?
It's been, they haven't really talked a lot about it. I would be surprised if he is suspended. I wouldn't be shocked if it was just for the first game. Auburn's been, and this is smart. Auburn is letting the university do what they need to do, right? And at the end of the day, you always defer to letting the university do their due diligence, coming together to make a decision. I don't think there's going to be some big suspension. I think if he is suspended, it'll probably be the first game. But outside of that, I think he's going to be ready to go.
And then back to the offensive coordinator. Correct me here if I'm wrong. Definitely from more of a Georgia fan's perspective, I think college football fans' perspective. Do you feel like the new OC will have a better tendency? I think one of the biggest complaints is not feeding the hot hand. Tank Bigsby. I think a lot of people outside looking in at Auburn the past couple of years have seen some Tank Bigsby games where he's looked like he could have had 12, 15 more carries. Kind of seemed like he cut him off early. Tried to do a couple things besides feed maybe the best player on the field. I think that that's a issue even Georgia's had trouble with. Obviously, embarrassment by riches, but I think that it's one thing that Kirby's talked about Bobo's system is that don't count on 3 running backs all getting 8 carries anymore. Like if somebody's running well today, they may get 22, kind of thing.
Yeah. Well, and obviously it's a new regime now, but I'll say this. I think when we talk about feeding the hot hand, obviously if you got a great matchup out there and that guy's cooking, are the offensive lines dominating and the running backs feeling it, they're in good sync, you want to feed the hot hand. But there's also a play when there's the hot hand that defense adjusts what they're doing to stop that hot hand. And if I know that the defense is adjusting, I can catch them with their pants down at other spots. Because if all of a sudden we're beating you up in the run game and you're walking those safeties down and you're trying to run stunt, well, now I may have a matchup somewhere else that I didn't have in the beginning of the game. Now all of a sudden that play action hits twice as hard. So I think there's a needle to be threaded in between feeding the hot hand and taking advantage of having the hot hand. And I do think that's where that good blend of Phil Montgomery and Hugh Freeze coming together will be able to fix that.
I want to ask you this, right? So Auburn was not good last year, right? I think that's fair to say.
Yeah.
But
No, that's fair to say.
the expectations this year, I think, are going to be substantially different, right? I think you actually have someone that's confident enough with enough support to get them to. And I think what I mean by the support is you see the support in the way y'all are recruiting right now, right? Like we get that,
Yeah.
right? Because when it's easy. Auburn is easy to judge, right? With how they support their coaching staff and their head coach for sure. I mean, if you see them pulling recruiting wins, things like that, more than likely you've got their support, right? And I think that's on full display right now with Hugh Freeze. I don't understand why they didn't try to go for him initially, but I guess maybe he's needed some time in Liberty or whatever. I guess changing his life. But with that being said, I want to ask your opinion ahead of the season, right? I know obviously big Week 5 matchup in Jordan-Hare against Georgia. I want to get your opinions on the season. What do you think that record expectations would be? Like realistic, worst case, best case. What are your feelings, expectations there for Auburn in regards to a record this season?
Yeah, well, fan is short for fanatical, and at a place like Auburn, the expectation is always high. But man, I grew up in it. I played it. I coached for 9 years, 6 at the Division I level, and Auburn hadn't sent me a check yet, so I look at everything from a balanced point of view. I mean, I know how the sausage is made. I think a great year would be 8-4. I think the ceiling is 9-3. I'm not ready to make a prediction yet. I'll wait till the end of fall camp because I need to see who gets hurt, who wins what job, not only for the team I'm projecting, but who they're playing. If somebody goes down at quarterback at a team you're playing, that may change the way I feel about the game. But I think if it's 7-5, it needs to be the right 7-5. But I think 8-4 is very gettable because Auburn's non-conference. There's a chance that Auburn could sweep the non-conference, and if you do that, and you split in conference, and there's some very winnable games I think in the conference, and if you surprise a team or two, I think 9-3 is the ceiling. I think 8-4 is a legitimate, rational expectation, and I think that'd be a really good year.
Well, now that you said that, let's just pop off the schedule for Auburn this year, and kind of see. I want to get what you said the right 7-5, right? Let's see what that looks like. So first things first, you're hosting UMass before going to Cal and having a game out in California. Then you host Samford and then go to Kyle Field. Week 5 against Georgia at home, right? Before a bye week. Then you got LSU on the road, Ole Miss at home, Mississippi State at home, Vanderbilt on the road, Arkansas on the road, then New Mexico State, following up before the Iron Bowl, which you are home as well. Show us or tell us what the right 7-5 you speak of outside of the non-conference.
Yeah, well, let's all right. Outside of the non-conference, I would say to me, obviously beating Vandy on the road, that's when you really need to win. Nobody wants to lose to Vanderbilt. But I think if you're able to take one of at A&M or Arkansas, or if you drop both of them, I don't think you're winning at LSU. I don't see it with the team that they have. If you're able to take one of two against A&M, beat Vandy on the road, and somehow split one of Bama and Georgia, which would most likely be Bama, in my opinion, I think that's the right 7-5. If you lose to Bama, if you lose to your rivals and just win the games you're supposed to win, I believe that still gets you to 7-5, but you're not really excited about anybody you beat. So I think that's the best way to put it.
Because, look like you said, the non-conference, UMass, that's an easy dub. Cal, I think, will be an easy dub, even on the road. Samford should be an easy dub, but don't sleep on that. Florida fans will tell you not to sleep on them. But then like I said, you go to New Mexico State, easy dub. So there's your 4 wins off the rip, like you mentioned. The Alabama game, we know how this goes. Auburn is built on some voodoo graveyard. I'll die on that hill. I'll die on that hill. Kobe, you've played there. You know what I'm talking about. But the good thing is this year, you do host Georgia and Auburn in your home stadium, right, rather than going on the road, right? We saw what happened last season, right, with the Iron Bowl. I think you get another kind of game like that. But ultimately, though, Jake, my thing is, I think I think your season legitimately depends upon your quarterback selection. And it's so cliche, but I think it's so effective and accurate in this case this year. Like you mentioned, you've got two completely different style quarterbacks, right? One, Robbie Ashford, is very mobile, right? But the accuracy issues, can those get squared away? Peyton Thorne comes in, and you're questioning his ability to run, right? Thinking it's going to be an RPO system. I mean, what are your who do you think wins the starting job?
Yeah, well, look, I'm from the school of I don't think you bring in transfer portal guys or JUCO guys to sit the bench. You brought him in for a reason. I said the same thing about Tyler Buckner in Alabama. They didn't bring him in to hold a clipboard or because everything was great. They brought him in because they thought he could win the job. What I think's going to happen is Peyton Thorne's going to be named the starting quarterback, but they're going to use Robbie Ashford a lot in third and short, fourth and short, red zone situations because it's not wildcat when you bring him in. He throws the ball well enough, where you do have to at least respect it a little bit, but he gives you a much more, you can hit the perimeter with Robbie Ashford, right? If it's not working on the inside, he can get you that fourth and a yard and a half. If it's not working, if it's something where, you have that run pass option built in, he can throw it well enough to be able to hit that open guy on that out route to get the first down, or hit the slant if the nickel overplays it, or throw the jump pass or something like that. So I think Peyton's going to win the job. I think he's going to be your primary guy, but you'll get Robbie Ashford probably around 15 to 20 snaps.
So, I mean, I think Thorne opens up the offense for what it needs to be. Just obviously from a small sample size here, last year against Georgia, I don't want to hold the standard against Georgia, but kind of will, right? He just looked uncomfortable the entire game. And it just never could get into a rhythm, forced him to roll out. We saw how mobile he was, but I think Auburn's going to have the receivers to help the quarterback, right? I think another question, though, is how can the offensive line hold up, right? I think that's going to matter. Yeah. Other than that, though, I think the offense would be interesting to see. I think it's going to look completely different, right? Especially if Peyton Thorne wins the job.
Yeah. Well, the thing about the Georgia game last year was Auburn couldn't run the ball. And Robbie Ashford isn't a guy that can just sit back there in the pocket and pick you apart. That's not his game. I mean, you want to be balanced in general, but especially when you have Robbie Ashford there, and they had to roll him out because they couldn't protect him in the pocket. And so you've made yourself, instead of one-dimensional, now you're half-dimensional. You can only use half the field, and you can't run the ball. I mean, you're dead in the water. I do think what they brought in on the offensive line with Avery Jones, Dylan Wade, and the Muskrat kid from Tulsa, Britton from Western Kentucky, who I think is an NFL tackle. They've got Cam Stutz at guard. They've got a capable backup swing guy in Connor Lew and a JUCO tackle who I think can fill in. Not that they're going to be the best offensive line in the country, but I think they're going to be a whole heck of a lot better than they were last year, and that's going to lead to them being more balanced. And I'll tell you this, if I can take the best version of Robbie Ashford versus the best version of Peyton Thorne, I'm taking Robbie Ashford. But I just don't know if he throws the ball well enough yet to be able to be the best version of that. And Peyton Thorne has a ton of experience, and that's the unteachable intangible.
Yeah, it's hard to overcome the experience. I think, Kobe, you've seen how it works firsthand. I mean, I don't think it's worth sitting there trying to go on a long rant and tangent about it.
Well, yeah, that's what I was trying to bring up a little bit earlier too. It's like, you're talking about the difference between 9-3, 7-5, the kind of season you have, the kind of season it feels like you have. Really, when I hear the schedule that you read off, and hearing Jake talk, it's really you're going to be judged on the Arkansas game, the Ole Miss game, and the Texas A&M game. That's what your fan base is going to judge you off of. Can you stop and slow down KJ Jefferson and Rocket Sanders? Can you stop and slow down the Ole Miss offense? And can you handle Texas A&M with a coach that a lot of people are leaning to wanting out of there, possibly? You come out and you win 2 of those games, it's a really good season for Auburn football.
Yeah.
Especially in year one,
those games, people are going to have some, they're going to maybe no pitchforks, but people are going to be a little upset.
I think with how Auburn fans are, man, and Jake, this is how this is 100%. Depending upon how y'all season goes, even year one, you're going to be on edge, I mean, in a good way or a bad way. Like,
Yeah,
it's just
always. That's what makes it fun.
What game do you have circled on the schedule for Auburn this year in regards to the most excited to see? And then, so it's a two-part. One being the most excited to see, two, the biggest game that is a must-win for Auburn. What are those two games?
Well, I'd say the one that I'm the most excited to see is against A&M, because that's the first team you're going to play that probably has a better roster than you do, or at least a roster that's the same as yours. You're going to have a better team than every team you play before that, and you're really not 100% going to know until you go out there, especially on the road in a tough environment. I would say the game that I would say I'm the most excited to see, I mean, is the first one. I want to see what the offense looks like. Even if it's bread and butter and peanut butter and jelly, I want to see what type of bread you're making it with. You know, what type of peanut butter is it? Is it extra crunchy? Is it thin? You know, what type of jelly you going with? You going with grape jelly? Are you being a little exotic? Are we going jam? You know, I don't know. So I think at the end of the day, just seeing who kind of Auburn is, where the personnel is, how kind of the game is flowing, how much they pressure on defense. That's what I'm interested to see. How organized are they? Are you organized on special teams? Are you getting a lot of dead ball penalties, false starts, offsides, hitting guys late, doing stupid things? That's going to let me know how mature the team is.
I was about to bring in the culture as well too.
And then on top of that, you know, are you lining up incorrectly? Does your defense seem lost? Does your offense seem lost? Is your offensive line kicking to the wrong, linebacker?
For sure. Is the quarterback calling the right protection? I mean,
is the center identifying the Mike ID correctly?
Are you fitting the run right? Just little things, because that's what football is. And you guys know this. It's a bunch of little things that add up to one big thing.
And I think I 100% agree with you with the Texas A&M game being very exciting for you as an Auburn fan, but I think as an SEC fan, it's going to be a good test to tell you, okay, how does Auburn stack up compared to last year? How does Texas A&M stack up compared to last year? Yeah. And kind of what trajectory are both of these programs going towards, year one under Hugh Freeze and year, I don't even know, under Jimbo now, like 5 or 6. I can't keep up.
Jake, off the record kind of question here for you. Does Jimbo and Petrino work out, yes or no?
Man, I actually think it's going to work out. Just because I do think I think Bobby has enough cachet to be able to really kind of take that thing by the reins. And look, Jimbo wants to look smart, right? Jimbo hired him. If Bobby Petrino goes there and the offense is great, Jimbo looks like a humble genius. Like, listen, I gave away my favorite part of the game to somebody that I hired that I trusted. I'll tell you when we'll know. It better be good early. When you have two guys with egos like that, it better go good early. And that first 3rd and 7 play call against Miami is going to be awfully interesting. And I think that's going to be – I never want to put the season down to one game, but with the way it's gone for A&M, that Miami game is going to be a basket full of interesting. I promise you that.
They better not let Miami win.
It's like any – I think it's like any and you know this from coaching, obviously. You spend all offseason and you make these promises to recruit, especially now with NIL, especially now with a new coaching staff, all this. You go, just give me time. We had a bad year last year. It's not who we are. Just give me time. We're going to turn this thing around. We're going to be better. We're going to be more efficient. We're going to be more explosive. You get, a nice Smith to come back. You have all of these weapons. If you go out there and lay an egg early in the season, and all of a sudden it's not just the coaches, it's the players more than anything that are going, wow, we've done, winter lifts, summer conditioning, fall camp, and we still suck.
Yeah, no, that's a real thing. And especially, if the offense is playing bad, that creeps into the defense. You can say all you want, hey, we'll take care of it, but at the end of the day, if the offense is bad. And A&M, one of the biggest problems they've had is the culture over there. And when it's gone bad, it's gone really bad. They've kind of sold the boat, per se, when it's gone bad. Now, do they have that fixed? We'll see. It's something that can be fixed. But yeah, it needs to go good early. They need a lot of positive momentum early, and if they get it, they have good enough players to be really dangerous.
I wanna focus on something real fast. I wanna focus on week 5. If Auburn has any shot to win against Georgia, what needs to happen?
I would say it's Carson Beck's first true road test at a very hostile place. I think a lot of turnovers. I think they're going to have to. Georgia's so much better than Auburn is up front. They're going to have to keep them in the game by making mistakes, penalties on third down that extend drives. Busting the coverage here, turning the ball over, maybe giving up a special teams touchdown or a defensive touchdown. And Auburn's going to have to play clean. Now, that's not to say that if Auburn goes out there and plays their best game and Georgia plays good, that Auburn can't win it, because you do have that home field advantage. But I really think Georgia, I think Carson Beck's going to have to panic, really, to be honest with you.
Yeah, I'm go ahead, Kobe.
It's going to have to look like Missouri 2022.
Yeah, they hang around, right? One of those games you just hang around and hang
loud,
around.
Just like Iron Bowl last year.
Full of believing. I mean, believing goes a long way for.
No, yeah, you get to that. You get a couple minutes into that third quarter, and it's close, and you're still working. That's when you really start to believe, right? Because it's like they say in basketball: most important time of the game, first 5 minutes of the game, first 5 minutes after halftime. I believe it's the same way in college football.
So Sacred Grove asked a good question, guys. What do you think the Auburn record will be come week 5? I think there's a good chance that Auburn comes into week 5 undefeated, and if that happens, that will be a very interesting game.
That'll be a primetime game.
It would have to be.
They play all 4 games before us, or the non-conference games.
No, you have A&M the week before.
Yeah.
Okay.
I would say the smart money's probably on 3-1.
Yeah.
But knowing the way that Auburn operates, for some reason we play really well against A&M on the road. I don't know what it is, and I'm not a big trends guy. But I will say this: even if you go into the game 3-1 and you played A&M close, sometimes going into it coming off a loss isn't the worst thing. Now, look, I'd love to be 4-0. I'm not going to sit here and lie like I want to be 3-1. But, you'll come in confident if you're 4-0. You also come in with a ton of pressure to see if you can go 5-0. And, hey, is Auburn for real? Because the questions only get harder as you go along undefeated. Y'all know that. But I would say right now, gun to my head, 3-1.
Yeah, sometimes that's tough pressure, like you're saying. It's that 2021 Arkansas that rolled into town like 5-0, number 8 in the country.
Yeah,
it was just an ass whooping from start of the bell. You don't want necessarily so much media talk saying Auburn's back at 4-0 that someone goes out and proves a point.
Yeah, and the other team starts believing, hey, we better take these cats serious.
Yeah,
it's a high class problem.
Well, yeah, I think you look at it though, man. Like, just for the sake of entertainment, I could easily see a path to get y'all 4-0 heading to Georgia.
I think that A&M game's probably 55-45. Talking about percentage-wise, A&M right now, I think it could go either way.
Well, I think the defense. Like, my thing is, I feel like Auburn's defense is going to be better this year. I just don't know how much and how deep the defense is.
Last year, it's going to come down to the pass rush.
It's 55-45 right now. Let Texas A&M play Miami, and we'll know a lot more on those.
That's exactly right.
Without a doubt. Well, I mean, Miami's not that good anyway. So,
well, I mean, they're talented up front. They're just young.
Fair, I suppose. I don't know. I think y'all are right in regards to the Miami litmus test, if you will. Again, I mean, there's if Auburn is 4-0 heading into the Georgia game, first off, we know that place is going to be rocking. No questions asked.
Oh, it'll be nuts.
No questions asked.
I hope it's raining.
Yeah, Auburn will pull a fucking rain dance and sit there and start bringing the voodoo graveyard up and legitimately see like an Indian spirit or something, just floating around. Hey, who knows? Who knows what happens here?
You got to kick the giant eagle in the balls.
Well, speaking of the Eagle, man. No, in all seriousness, I think that would, I feel like Kobe, Georgia has, looking at the schedule, no real what feels like true test, right? That perception could change if Auburn is 4-0 heading into week 5. Now, in the grand scheme of things, hindsight, right? Jake, you probably would understand this. Like, you look at, say, an undefeated Auburn week 5, right? If Georgia goes and just decimates Auburn, right, and then things in Auburn finishes 8-4, would you think the perception would still be Georgia didn't play nobody?
The perception of Georgia. I was about to say I'll take it.
No, I know. Yeah, well, I mean, for Auburn's sake, yeah.
I would say the perception of Georgia. I mean, I think everybody's perception of Georgia is that because Carson Beck's walking into a great situation. I think that everybody expects Georgia. Everybody expects Georgia to roll through the regular season. I don't think it'd change the perception of Georgia. I think it would reinforce the perception of Georgia.
I mean, Carson Beck woke up in a new Bugatti. Okay.
I just guess, and correct me if I'm wrong here, either one of you. I just guess the thing that irritates me the most about cupcake schedule for Georgia this year.
Yeah.
Back in the day, and I mean, for as long as I can remember, the way that you had a good year, I mean, Cincinnati is a great example. I hate to, compare us to Cincinnati, is everything used to have to line up perfectly. You had to have a good recruiting class in. They had to be, juniors or seniors. You had to be a little older. And then you had to dodge a couple people on your schedule that year. Your schedule had to be a little more home friendly for you. And then all of a sudden you're 11-1, 12-0, and you've made that run. You would have to prove there just aren't that many teams that run the full gauntlet of hard home, away tested schedule and then still come out the other end unscathed.
Yeah.
There have been plenty of national championships that have had easy 12-game schedules.
Yeah, well, this, no, you're not going to play great for every game, right? And in the SEC, you probably play your best at max 4, maybe, and this is rare to have all 3 phases play their best, maybe 5 games a year, right? It's those games where you're not playing your best that you just got to make it through, and that's what makes the SEC so tough, is that every week's a fight, and when you're the top dog, pun intended, everybody wants to play their best game against you. I mean, you look at the Georgia, for example. Hell, go back to the Kent State game last year. I mean, you're the Missouri game. There's games where you're not going to be playing at your best, that you still have to find a way to win. And I hate the term easy schedule or cupcake schedule in the SEC. That doesn't exist. Maybe in the non-conference it exists, and that's not Georgia's fault this year because of the Oklahoma situation. But that's why I say you have lighter schedules and you have heavier schedules. There's no such thing as an easy schedule in the SEC or a cupcake schedule. You got to go to Tennessee. You got to go to Auburn. I mean, it's not a walk in the park. So anybody that thinks that's a very casual take to me.
Well, and to me, you have a Power 5 last game of the season against an in-state rival. It's also not Georgia's fault that they have been traditionally horrendous over the past 6 to 8 years. I mean, that's we're not going to replace Georgia Tech just because they're bad.
No, and you shouldn't. It's just, again, and football's cyclical. It always will be. It's like 20 years from now, everybody will run the triple option. It's just, that's how it is. I mean, teams go up and down. So, yeah, I mean, look, at the end of the day, Georgia, do they have the hardest schedule they've ever had? No. Do they have an easy schedule? No. This is a hard game because it's the ultimate team sport. But I do think that Georgia, from a personnel standpoint, from an organizational program standpoint, they're in the best spot every week to go out and win.
So Sacred Grove brings up most teams don't want to go to Tennessee and Auburn, and I think that's right. There's another thing, though, right? You look at Georgia's cupcake in air quotes. The teams that are calling it a cupcake schedule are on our schedule. They make up our schedule. Those are the fans that are calling for that.
Well, I
By
mean,
the way.
Well, I mean, what else trash are they going to talk about Georgia? It's nothing. You want back-to-back national championships. Like what? When they're having to say that, that means you're in a great spot. I wish. There's a lot of teams that wish that would be the only knock against them. Hey, your team's so good that your schedule seems easier.
I mean, listen, out of the fans that I've heard bitching and complaining about Georgia having a cupcake schedule were fans of teams on our schedule. And I literally just had to stop and be like, you do realize your team makes our cupcake schedule, right? I just want you to understand that.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
do the math. I do want to do this real fast. I want to talk some playoff talk real fast, Jake, but I got to give a shout out to our sponsors. First one, guys. Y'all know them. I have it every single morning. Apotheos Coffee, baby. Apotheos Coffee, located in Kennesaw, Georgia. 30 years of crafting experience. Listen, scan the QR code, give them a follow, get you a bag of coffee, folks. Look at this bag of coffee right there. Get you something like that. But anyways, Jake, I got to ask one question. 4-team playoff last season, right? 4-team playoff.
Yeah.
Who are your 4 teams, and who do you have winning it?
Well, like I said, I typically I don't make my predictions until the end of fall camp, but I'll tell you where I'm leaning right now. If I think you're going to get Georgia in, I think you're going to get LSU in, I think you're going to get Michigan in, and I think you're going to get Texas in. Those are the 4. That's where I'm leaning right now.
I think that'd be fair. I like it. Let's see. Mitch has Georgia, Michigan, Texas, USC. That's fair. As Alex Grinch is there, man, I get so worried about their defense. USC's defense, I'm always concerned.
Pac-12's going to cannibalize itself.
Dude, it was a perfect example last season. Perfect example. I know you got to get ready to go. Sacred Grove mentions Georgia, Texas, Washington, and Michigan with a 3-peat. Listen, if you choose someone out of that Pac-12, I'm okay with that. Yeah, I'm watching out for the ACC. I want to see if Florida State can capitalize on the momentum in the preseason and ride out a good season and get to the playoffs. If they can handle Clemson, I think there's a solid chance of them getting there. But I expect Clemson and Florida State to possibly play twice.
What was the season, though? The first 5 weeks, they play LSU and Clemson. I mean, by week 6, you'll know if Florida State is, contender or pretender.
I mean, obviously, outside of an injury, 100%. Jake, I know you said you got to run, sir. Where can people, speaking of, didn't Tim Brando just join on y'all's show and say that Michigan could be winning it all? Is that true?
Yeah, he did. You need to go check it out. His top 10, he kind of does it different. He does how the top 10 is going to look at the end of the season, which I think is fascinating. He picked Michigan to win it all. Didn't have Texas in the top 15. Didn't have Oklahoma in the top 15. Didn't have Florida State in the top 15. So, go to YouTube. It's Crain & Company. We're almost at 100,000. We go live each weekday morning, 7:30 to 9 a.m. Eastern, live calls, a live chat. We talk a ton of ball, and it's a great time, man. And I always love coming on with you, DGB. You know that.
Absolutely. Hey, tell your brother that he's mid. He's mid.
I'll tell him. That'll be I can't wait to tell him that.
Absolutely. I'd love to come on the show just for 1 second, just so I could tell Adam to get off his lawn.
Dude, you should call in, and we'll move you straight to the top and just you can tell him he's mid.
Let's do it.
That would fill me with personal blossoming joy.
Oh, Jesus. Got to catch that. Anyways, hey, make sure to go follow Jake. Go tune in, subscribe on the YouTube channel, Crain & Company. Worth a shot. I'm telling you right now, it's worth the listen, folks. I'm just going to leave that there.
I appreciate it. I love what you got going, man. Keep rolling.
Hey, this is the OG Booster Club situation.
Oh, for sure. The OG, triple OG. They don't know about that.
They ain't ready for that. Anyways, man, hey, thanks for coming on and talking some Auburn football, trying to get a feel for Auburn ahead of the season. Like I said, make sure to go follow Jake and have a good one, Jake.
Hey, y'all be good, man. Good to talk to y'all. Cody, good to talk to you, buddy.
See you, Jake.
With that being said, Kobe, learned a little bit about some Auburn football tonight. What are your thoughts as we kind of get ready to wrap this thing up, man? What are your takeaways from what you think about Auburn could be this season?
I hope they go 3-9. I didn't want to say it with Jake here, but I mean,
Oh, I would have.
I just can't like them.
It's Auburn, man. It's Auburn.
Something deep down inside me.
Except one.
Nope. If Juan was on there, he would be just on up there with everybody else. I just don't think I'm over the Prayer and Jordan Hare still, and then also just kidding. I'm over the 2017 ass whooping because we
got it bad.
Yeah, we did.
Yeah, we got it bad.
Prayer and Jordan Hare kind of hurts me.
Stings a little bit.
I will tell you this though. I think South Carolina and Auburn need to watch out for a man named Mike Bobo because I think that he will be out for a little nasty revenge.
Well, I don't know how many times I've heard people say that Bobo ain't gonna be shit at Georgia now, and I'm sitting here thinking about this, and it's like he has Georgia's point per game record, right, with way less talent now and a way better defense right now. How can he not be fine?
I guess for anybody that says that, you're entitled to your opinion. All you have to do is go back to the time he was here. Like, yes, there were a couple big plays and a couple big games. The one big one everybody brings up is South Carolina in, 13, when you're, ball at the 2 and we don't hand it off to Todd. Yeah, that's the one everybody wants to bring up, and that might have even been 2012. But other than that, go back and look. I mean, man was putting up 38 points, and we were giving up 45. I mean, you call plays. You go out and you call plays for a team whose defense is giving up 45 a game.
I mean, hell, remember we went and compiled the stats, man. 2013, you were giving up 29 points per game.
So the big thing to me is Kirby did it in his opening presser today. He talked about Todd Monken. He talked about the meeting he had with Todd Monken before he left. The sit down, kind of last powwow. Todd's telling him he's taking the job, he's leaving. But he kind of, instilled this confidence in Kirby saying, hey, man, listen, this is not just me. And I think Jake said it really good earlier, too, talking about offensive coordinators. They are their own successor. They live and die on plays they call. But they're not the only people calling the plays week in, week out. I mean, Bobo called, I think Todd Monken said that he called 3 of the touchdown plays or 4 of the touchdown plays in the playoffs this year. He came to Todd over the month of December and was like, I think we should run these 10 plays, and 4 of them scored touchdowns in the playoffs. It just shows you that hopefully Bobo's been, the fire's been relit under him to be this offensive coordinator, to do it for your alma mater again, to get a chance that a lot of people don't get, to kind of come back, prove everybody wrong, prove that you're an elite offensive coordinator, maybe win one with you as the offensive coordinator, and then you have somebody with Carson Beck's talent. You just can't let him get in your way because your defense is going to be phenomenal. Your offensive line probably has 5 NFL draft picks on it. I mean, your tight end's the best tight end in the country. You have some of the best wide receivers in the country. You really just got to go out there and tell them where to be and when to be there. And I think they're going to kind of run out there and win games by themselves, kind of, 2019, 2020 Alabama type feel of you just send them out there and they're just better than everybody else they play to a certain extent.
True, 100%. So I want to give a shout out to our final sponsor of the night, and that is Alumni Hall, located in Athens, 10 minutes away from Sanford Stadium. Hey, licensed Nike, Cutter and Buck, you name it, they've got it. All licensed apparel, accessories. Listen, we said 31 days till kickoff. Get your game day stuff, get your tailgating stuff at Alumni Hall. If you go in store, you can get 10% off, mention our show, or you can go online, scan the QR code, or go to dgdpodcast.com. Check out the drop down for the shop Alumni Hall. Get you some good clothes, get you some nice tailgate stuff. You cannot go wrong with it, folks. Thank you, Alumni Hall. Kobe, before we depart, any final thoughts? Anything you need to get off your chest about this Auburn Tigers team?
No, I'm pretty okay with Auburn right now. I think that, like we talked about, I think that they're going to have a big test before us. I really don't see Cal testing them. I just don't, unless they have just a horrendous game with like 10 penalties and 3 turnovers. I think they kind of could even sleepwalk through their first 3. They're going to have a big test in Texas A&M, but I like it because Auburn cannot go out there and peanut butter and jelly vanilla Texas A&M to death. They're going to have to show their hand. They're going to have to show you what they have and their tendencies. And you give Kirby a week of that. I just don't think that he's going, if in doubt, he's going to take the ball out of Carson's hand in Auburn. He's going to beat him on an old school, 28-10 Kirby Smart, death march.
Yeah, I'm with you. I think the only thing I got to say before we wrap this thing up is we're gonna beat the fuck out of Auburn. Like, I ain't even gonna have to go into it. We'll get there when the time comes, but we are going to beat the absolute fuck out of Auburn, and I cannot wait for that. Juan, I am not sorry. I'm not sorry at all. Just not. With that being said, we're gonna wrap this thing up. Kobe, we will catch you next time, sir. As always, have a great night. Go Dogs.
Go Dogs.